Welcome to my first vegetable garden. It's raining, so the video quality may not be great, but I wanted to show you how to get the peas that I talked about growing in pea pots out into your garden. Today's March 29th, and the last 2 weeks out in my area, it's been too cold. The nights have been like 25, even sometimes 20 degrees, and even though peas would survive, they weren't really good to grow, so I held them in my greenhouse a little bit longer than I want. These are Cascadia snow peas that were planted on February 23rd. If you're going to do this method, you want to time it so the peas grow in these pots for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks at the longest. These have been growing almost 5 weeks, and you can see the roots are pretty long. There's sort of a myth that says you can't start peas in containers and put them into the yard, into the garden, because they don't like having their roots disturbed. And that's true. These are a little bit long, but we're not going to disturb them. We're just going to build a trench, drop them in completely flat, and then fill around it. The way that I set up my planting area is, first, this is about a 6-foot planting area. You can't see all of it. I put down about a shovelful of peat moss per square foot. Doesn't have to be exact. Down the length, turned it over, loosened the soil, and then I put about a half a shovelful per square foot across the top. And for fertilizer this year, I'm going more organic in the garden beds, for the main reason that I want to really kind of nurture the living life in the garden, the organisms, the bacteria. So I'm using a plant tone formula that's a 5-3-3 fertilizer, and it has a lot of microorganisms and different things to really help your soil. In theory, I'm going to test it out. But what I do, as I've told you before, is I use 1 tablespoon of fertilizer per square foot. That's usually under the recommendation. You don't need to overdo fertilizer. So basically, just 1 tablespoon per square foot of your fertilizer. And also, because I'm using peat moss, I did 1 tablespoon of garden lime every square foot or every 2. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you can see I just worked my way down. Mix the fertilizer, the peat moss, and the lime in the top 4 inches of your soil, and just make sure it's fairly loose. And then you build a trench, and the trench should be deep enough that the peas obviously get covered, but also that the peat moss gets covered. You don't want any of the peat moss trace sticking above the soil. That will actually wick water away and dry out the root systems. And you can see I'm just dropping them down. Let the roots lie wherever they are. Let me move that. And I'm going to plant this whole row, and I'll come back and show you how I use cut branches from my fruit trees for trellises. And also I have to put a chicken wire cage over this because I have rabbits that will come and just shear these down. So once you get the trench set up, you can see it's going to be about level to the garden soil. Just fill in around it gently. You don't really want any gaps, and drop the soil around it. Make sure the peat moss, if you have like areas where you have separation between the peat trays, just make sure you fill it in. You don't want any air gaps in there. And just work the soil slowly around the trays. And that's all you really need to do. It's raining today, so I'm not going to water it in. You fertilized it lightly. Peas fix their own nitrogen, and they don't need much in the way of fertilizer. So this is how you get a jump start on a season, especially in my area when it was 20 degree, 25 degree nights. If I put direct seed in here, the seeds would have just sat and probably rotted. We even got a couple of snows. So these are ready to go, and I'm going to do the whole row. I'm going to put in the apple branches and just show you the final setup when I'm done. Here's the finished project. I put down a chicken wire cage that I made last year because I get rabbits that sneak into my yard even with a fence, and one rabbit will shear this whole patch down. You don't have to build a cage like this. You could actually just lay chicken wire on top of the peas. The peas will grow through it. Rabbits are kind of lazy. They don't like to work for their food, so if they touch the chicken wire, they'll usually leave it alone because they don't know what it is, and their feet actually get tangled up in it. Anyway, the peas are in, the cage is down for protection, and I put in bamboo stakes and tree branches for them to trellis up. This method of planting peas gives you a 3 or 4 week jump on the season. Like I said earlier, I couldn't put these into my ground as seeds because it was too cold, too wet, and the seeds just wouldn't have germinated. They probably would have, a lot of them would have rotted, and it just got too cold. So by growing peas in the peat trays, you can get them to your table 3 to 4 weeks early. I also have some peas that I showed you how to grow in cups. I'm going to do a video on planting them along the edge of this bed, and I already have a chicken wire trellis set up for them. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out my blog at www.therustedgarden.blogspot.com and also check out my YouTube videos. Thanks.